Hey kids, welcome back to String Cheese and Applesauce. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we're going to do a time-lapse build, which is kind of like a live build, except you're not going to sit there and see me taking a really long time talking about everything, you know, getting bored and leaving. I mean, you don't do that, do you? You leave my videos? Don't leave my videos. So today we got something special, a little different. It's a Technic set. This is the Technic Prix Racer. This is set number 42000. This set was released in, let's see, I've got it pulled up, 2013. So this was last year's set. Now 2013 Technics were actually very hard to find. They were exclusive to Toys R Us only, or Shop at Home, Lego store, whatever you want to call it. So you normally couldn't find these like at Walmart or Target or Amazon or other places that you normally buy your Lego from. So I ended up buying this, not the last time there was double VIP, but the last time before the last time. So whenever that was. So I've actually had this sitting around for quite some time, probably about 5-6 months. Now this set is similar to the Lego City Grand Prix. So if the Lego City Grand Prix race set was too easy for you, well this is definitely the big boy one. So looking at the back, well, let's look at the front real quick. Not much on the front, it just shows you the big old Grand Prix Racer, but there is two little small detail images here. It shows you that there is a real engine. Well, it's a fake engine, but the pistons move up and down, so it looks real. It's not. It doesn't really power and make the car move. And then it shows you you've got the little steering. Right there are the wheels, and then there's lifting the, I guess, the back hood up and then adjusting the rear spoiler. So this is a 2-in-1. Shows you that, oh, sorry, box is huge. 2-in-1. Looking at the back here, it shows you, again, a few detail shots of some of the functions. So if anyone's ever built a Technic set, they know that there's a ton of mechanical functions in it based on all the gearing that you put in it. So it's a technical model. I mean, that's kind of what Technic comes from. So they're going to try to show off all the functions. You've got steering, you've got this rear hood that opens up to look at the fake engine with the pistons that move up and down, and then it shows you here how the spoiler goes up and down. Also, it shows you a smaller model or a smaller picture of the second model that the set makes. Now, keep in mind that this model, you have to disassemble the Grand Prix Racer to make this one. There's not enough pieces to make both of them in the set. So you either got to buy 2 of these, make one of each, or disassemble the race car, and then you can build this race truck. And it shows you that to get those instructions, you got to go online. They're not inside the box. Also, it shows you right here that if you buy the power function set, then you can attach a battery box and a motor, and it will motorize the functions. Now the functions in here are not, I guess, what I would consider worth being motorized for. It's just moving the spoiler up and down and opening the rear hood. That's the only real thing you can motorize. So without the battery box, you're going to have a little knob that you have to turn and turn and turn and turn. As it turns the gears, it's going to crank up whatever function you have going on. So it does take a lot of turning to get it to work, but to spend $30 for a motor and a battery box, not worth it. And to be honest with you, if you're a Technic fan, you probably have so many of these motors and battery boxes laying around anyway, you don't even need to buy this thing. I've bought it once, just because I wanted the white clutch gears that were in there. Other than that, I haven't ever had to buy another one. The white clutch gears are the rarest of them to find. Oh, there's also some lights in there. So I mean, you could put some LED lights on there, but I don't see it on here at all. So anyway, that's kind of a look at the outside of the box. So we're gonna go ahead and bust this open and just speed through this build real quick. And then we'll talk about it at the end. I'll give you my thoughts on the set, and we'll talk about anything else that's cool about it. So here we go. All right, so we're gonna bust this thing right open. Now, the first thing you'll probably notice is the Technic sets do not come with numbered bags. Well, I say most of them don't. I think the flagships actually do come with numbered bags, but I would say probably 90% of all Technic sets are just all the pieces in all the bags, unnumbered. So you have to bust them all open. And the easiest thing to do with any and all Technic sets is actually sort the pieces. You can get away with it sometimes with some of the regular Lego system sets, but I find it extremely beneficial to separate the pieces of the Technic sets. So what I'm doing now is separating all of the lift arms kind of by their general shape. All of the axles are all going into one pile because I've built enough sets to where I can kind of pick out the right length from a pile. All of your axle connectors are in a pile. All of the gears are in a pile. The suspension parts are in a pile. And then I've got all of the pins kind of right off to the side. So this set was 3 books, and there's actually 2 sticker sheets. I did not apply any of the stickers to this set, or I won't apply. I'm doing this audio after I've already built it, so that's why I said I wouldn't. But I will not apply any of the stickers, mostly because whenever I disassemble them, when you start building mocks or using the pieces for other sets, it kind of looks funny with stickers from another set on them. So unless I know I'm going to keep the set together, I don't put stickers on them. So what we've built so far is we sped through, built the frame. So it's basically, you start these Technic sets from the inside and go out. So we built the bottom frame or chassis, and now we're building the main gearbox. Now the gearbox of this set is actually not too intense, because there's only 2 functions that are going to be controlled by this gearbox. So those 2 axle connectors you see sitting off to the left there, those are the driving gears for the 2 functions. So we mounted the gearbox on the chassis, and now we're going to go ahead and start building. Okay, this is one of the bottom underbody parts. So a few more controlling gears for the gearbox. And now it looks like we're going to start the engine. Nope, I lied. Still working on the gearbox. So these black pieces I'm putting on now, that's actually going to be the seat. So it folded back, and there's your seat. And then this is another underbody part. It goes pretty quick whenever you've got all the pieces separated, especially once you kind of memorize where you have them all. You can just really start to fly through it. I know I have this sped up and all in a time-lapse build, but the build was a lot easier with the pieces sorted. The set has about 1,180 pieces. Let's see, 1141. Probably 300 or 400 of those pieces are pins, the Technic pins. And a lot of people don't understand the pins and think of it as Lego bricks that you have to put every single stud on them. So where a Lego brick already has the little studs and everything put on it, and you just start connecting them. Technic, you have to put them on there before another piece can connect to it. So it's good and bad. The bad part is it inflates the part count of a lot of these sets because you need literally hundreds of them to be able to connect all these pieces together. But the good thing about it is where you don't need them, you don't have to put them on there. Where you do need them, you can put them on there. So it's completely customizable. Whereas a standard Lego set, you have, if you don't use all the studs, they're just left showing. So you know, that's why they call these Technic sets the studless models, because you don't see any studs exposed. And they've gotten a lot better with the panels. So where this is a lot of lift arms and pins and axles and everything put together, the panels usually hide a lot of that and it makes it look more of a full model. But there still are empty spots. So now we're into the engine block. We're building the whole engine. So we've got 8 pistons, 4 of the, wow, I went through that real fast. So yeah, it's an 8-cylinder engine. I'm not familiar with actual Grand Prix racers if they really do have 8, or maybe they have 10. There's 8 in this one. Oh, and this one I messed up right here. I realized I mounted the engine upside down. It was an easy fix. I didn't have to stop the video or anything. But you gotta be careful when you look at these instructions, make sure you put the things on the right way, because there is a definite wrong way. It's real easy to mess it up in the Technic. So there's the engine and the rear axle suspension mounted on the chassis there. So real quickly it's starting to come together. You still can't really make out the shape of the car, but it's getting there. So we finished instruction book 1, and I paused the video and actually resorted, or not resorted, but pushed a lot of the pieces out of the way, because instruction book 1 used probably 1/3 to maybe 1/2 of the pieces. So I cleared a little bit more working room by kind of pushing some of the pieces off to the side and consolidating the piles. So now we're building the front steering column and the front suspension. It was an interesting little front suspension because that rectangular bracket was actually mounted vertically, you can see. Normally it's mounted laying down. So it was kind of interesting seeing how they mounted the steering rack kind of unconventionally. So there wasn't any type of goofy connections, it's just you're not used to doing it that way. Or I'm not used to doing it that way. So you can see we've got our wheel hubs on, and now we're just adding all of our suspension pieces on. You've already got the 2 shocks on there. And there was another spot that's coming up that I messed up pretty bad, that I actually had to stop the video and backpedal a few steps to make it work. I don't think it wasn't anything major other than I missed 1 pin that had to be there in a future step, and I didn't realize at the time. I overlooked it. And then when I had a piece that had to be connected to it, actually this is it. See that red lift arm that's hanging down with the blue 3 long pin in there? That should have been mounted in between those white lift arms. I tried to fix it there, but it's still 1 short. So when I have to go back and fix that, you actually won't see it, but it'll be like, if you blink your eyes, you'll see that it's moved 1 pin back. But it had to be moved back, or else the things that connected to it weren't going to work. It's just the attention to detail. I mean, I tried to speed through this pretty quickly, and for the most part, I did pretty well. 2.5 hour build is about how long it takes. So we're speeding this up real quick to approximately about 16 minutes of build time, down from 2.5 hours. So we've got the front suspension and steering done, the rear suspension, the engine done. Now we're putting up, that's it. This is the spot where, so you couldn't tell, but I had paused it and it's back where it needs to be. But it took me about 5 minutes to disassemble some of those pieces and put it on there. So what we're building now is basically all the paneling and our spoilers and everything that's basically aesthetic to this model. Everything that is functional is done. So we're working on the front splitter, kind of the fins or whatever that you see on the front of the car. And now we've got the little hood going on. So you can see the bulk of the model's done. You know, it's interesting they use this one Technic brick 2 times in the model, and this is part of the hood that opens up and exposes the engine in the back. So there's one Technic brick used, and then there's a few bows and plates and tiles that are put on top of the studs of that brick just to make it look studless. But there's the other side now. So you can see it's got the studs on top, and we connect lift arms on the side, and then we use the Lego system pieces to kind of make it smooth. And then the 2 linear actuators there, those are used to open and close the hood. I guess those part were still functions that had to be installed. Everything else is done, so it's all aesthetics now. So we're building everything that connects to the hood. This little connection confused me because it was a little bit unconventional. Once I figured out what the instruction books were weird, because they show the model, the little picture to follow, they show it from almost the same perspective every single sheet as you turn it, and as you've got goofy angles and stuff, sometimes it distorts the perspective and you can't really tell where the connections are supposed to be. But I figured it out. So pretty big little assembly there for the hood. You can see I cranked it down. They told me to do that in the instructions, or else I probably would have left it open. And then this looks like the top air intake. Couple rear view mirrors. And you can see even without the stickers, it's not that bad of a color scheme. The stickers just give it the little sponsors and all the flair and everything, but the shape is there. The stickers aren't needed. So those blue pins, those 4 blue pins you see sticking out in the back, those are actually not used for anything in the set. What those are is where you actually mount the battery box if you were to install the power functions. So they already have them there and ready, but you'll see when the model is finished that they're still there and those blue pins are still exposed. So I didn't realize it at first. Well, there's a lot of pins exposed while you're building it, but once it was done, I was trying to figure that out, and then I realized it was for the battery box. So we'll get our tires on. The tires are pretty cool. They're low profile, pretty big. The whole model's pretty big. But once we get those on, we're done. There you go. Okay, so we got that build done in about 2.5 hours. So we sped it up real quick to about 15-20 minutes or so. So here it is, completely done. There were a few spots that kind of gave me a little bit of difficulty, but for the most part it was your typical Technic build. And like I said in my other videos, is you really have to be aware when you're building Technic models. You have to look at the instructions, look at the part call out, make sure you get them in the right holes, the right, you know, axle connectors, everything. Because if you screw one up, it throws off the whole build. You got to back up a few steps. I actually did that twice in this build. Once I just completely stopped the recording because it was so messy. I had to completely kind of take about 10 steps apart and then re-put them back in. So you didn't see that one, but it was there. So you just have to be careful with Technic. They're a little bit more advanced models, and you know, other than that, it was okay. So let's go ahead and look at some of the functions here. First, we're going to look at the extra parts. Now, the extra parts are a little bit more than I expected, and I'm thinking that these pieces are for the second model, the B model, whatever you want to call it. So I've got these 2 flexible hoses, 2 axles. I've got these thin lift arms, and then I got 6 clear studs, these trans clear studs. Now all the other pieces are kind of typical small pieces that you always see left over, and that's kind of what I expected. But the flexible hoses, the axles, the lift arm, and the clear studs, I'm a little confused why we have those extras. But either way, I'm going to try to disassemble this, do another video showing me build the B model using the instructions you have to download offline. I'm not going to print them. I like to look at them on the computer. Although the colors are kind of off, whatever, I don't care. I'll do my best. So the first function that we're going to look at here is the steering. Now there's a little knob right on the top towards the, I guess, middle front of the car, that when you turn, you can see that it's actually got really good steering of these front wheels. And what's also really cool is if you look down in here, it does have a steering wheel that actually turns. So as you turn right, the steering wheel turns right, and as you turn left, the steering wheel turns left. So that's really cool. I like that. Sometimes on these Technic cars, it's got the steering, but the steering wheel is static. It doesn't move at all. So this little detail is pretty cool. Okay, so now we're going to look at the second function, which is the spoiler. So on the right-hand side of the car, towards the back, there's this yellow lift arm, and it pushes either frontwards or backwards. So if you push it to the back and then start cranking this little knob, you can see that the rear spoiler actually will crank, I guess, back, and then it stops when it gets to the very end. And then you start cranking the gear forward, and then the spoiler comes back down. So that is, you know, the spoiler function. Now if we turn this or push this yellow lift arm towards the front and then start cranking this knob, you can see that the rear engine cover starts to slowly crank open. And this is what I was talking about, the power functions. The only thing that the battery box and motor would really do would be to allow this thing to go a little bit faster. You don't have to sit here and crank and crank and crank and crank. But that's all it would do, because that's all this little gear here does, is it opens the hood and adjusts the spoiler. That's all. So once we have this hood open, you can go ahead and see that we do have a working engine. So as you roll, and the gearing is tied to the back wheels. So as you roll the car, you can see that engine, the pistons are going up and down. Unlike a real engine, when the car is stopped and idling, those pistons would still be going. But this only works as soon as you start rolling the car, then the pistons start moving. So it kind of has the look of a real engine, and especially when you're pushing the car. But in reality, it would continue to crank it even if it was idling. Another thing we can go ahead and look at while it's open is you can see the shocks. The shocks are really a lot better than I expected they would be in this set. Now an Indy car or a Grand Prix car like this is already low to the ground, and it doesn't do any type of off-roading or anything. So the shocks is really not going to be that big of a movement So you can see it as you push down, it just goes a little bit down, but it's enough to, you know, as the car's speeding along at 200 miles an hour, it's gonna put so much downforce on it that the shocks are gonna, you know, help control the car a little bit. But you can see how they're mounted right behind the engine, and it's similar to the front. They're you can't see them, but they're mounted pretty much the same way as the back is. So I'll go ahead and close this engine now. And the only other function I really want to show you in here is the rear differential. They added that in there. Get that closed. So I'll flip it over here on the side, and you can see, well, you really can't see it because that little mini linear actuator's in the way, but there is a differential in there, and all that does, it allows the two rear wheels to turn at different speeds and still be a driving gear. So that's it. Overall, my thoughts on this car is I'm impressed. It's a lot more than I thought it would be. There's really only these new wheel hubs are the only new pieces that came out in this set, and I don't think I've seen these hubs in any other newer sets. There may be some in these 2014 Wave that's going to come out in a few months, but the wheel hubs are cool. They're new. Other than that, everything is just standard pieces. Some of them are a little bit more rare, like these little mini panels, but we've seen enough of them already to where they're not like the first time we ever seen them in this set. So that's it. I mean, it was a pretty cool little build. I would definitely recommend this if someone's looking for something a little bit more advanced. It is a little more expensive. I think the retail on this is about 120 bucks. So look for it on sale. Hopefully with Amazon now carrying Technic sets, maybe they'll get some of these and you can find them on, you know, 20-25%, you know, whenever Amazon randomly does their sales. So that's it. Make sure to check out all our other videos. Give us a like if you liked what you saw, and we will catch you next time. Later.